ignite a flame of remembrance, a flame of resistance, and a flame of truth. We are the youth, we are the future, and today we carry the sacred responsibility of remembering one of the darkest, most brutal chapters in our history, the 1984 Sikh genocide. In June 1984, our holiest shrine, Shri Harmandir Sahib Ji, also known to the wider world as the Golden Temple, was desecrated. Tanks rolled onto the house of Akal Purkh. Bullets tore through Shri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, through Kirtan, through the blood of innocents. Operation Blue Star was not just a military operation, it was an assault on our identity, our dignity, and our very spirit. Then came November 1984. In the streets of Delhi and other areas, other states of India, Sikh men, women, children were dragged out and burnt alive. Women were violated, children were orphaned, homes were looted. All of this not in the shadows, but out in the open, as the police stood by, as the leaders gave orders, and the world stayed silent. Thousands died, thousands more lived, but with wounds that never healed. This is a speech not just about what happened, it's about why you must care. You are the generation that will write the next chapter of the Sikh history. Some will tell you to forget, they will tell you to move on, just like you see now all over social media. But how can we move on without justice? How can we heal without the truth? You must remember 1984, not just with your mind, but with your soul. Because 1984 was not just an event, it was an awakening. It showed the world that Sikhs will never be broken, that our faith, our identity, and our fight for justice and freedom can never be crushed. Not by bullets, not by lies, and not by fear. What can we do? I ask you, well, I challenge you actually, learn our history. You can see all the displays behind us, but if you log on to the social media connected to all these organizations or go onto their websites, there is libraries and libraries of wealth of itihas, history, that has been ignored. Learn our history, not the whitewashed version, the truth. Share the stories of survivors. This is all available online on YouTube. Listen to their pain, carry their words forward, because very soon they won't be around for much longer. Demand justice, not revenge, but justice. Even if it takes decades, wear your identity with pride. Your dastar, your kirpan, your name, these are not burdens, they are badges of courage. Be the voice that says never again, and means it, for Sikhs and for anyone else facing genocide. The way forward, a truth that the world has tried to ignore, a truth that we carry in our blood, the dream of Khalistan. What is Khalistan? It's not just a piece of land, and it's not just a boundary on a map. Khalistan is a voice, a cry, a memory, a resistance. It is the soul of a people who have given their everything, their lives, their honor, their generations, to preserve their identity, their faith, and their right to live with dignity. We were promised equality, and we were promised safety, but what did we get? We remember 1947, and we remember 1984. The smoke of burning Gurdwaras still chokes us. The screams of our mothers still echo in our ears. The ashes of our fathers, of our sons, and our shaheeds, they are not to be forgotten. Their blood stains the conscience of the world. And yet, in the face of silence and in the face of brutality, we did not fall. We stood with the stars high, and our spirits unbroken, because Sikhs were never meant to heal, were never meant to kneel. And Guru Sahib and our Jar Sahibzade, they teach us this, that Sikhs were never meant to kneel. Khalistan isn't about hate. Khalistan is about hope. It is not born out of vengeance, it is born out of survival, out of protecting our existence. It is a dream that we can live free, speak our language, practice our faith, protect our rights, and raise our children without fear. And to those who say that this dream is impossible, I ask, was it impossible for India to rise in 1947? Was it impossible for the nations across the world to throw off their chains and find freedom? If the world believes in self-determination, then why is it that Sikh voices are not heard? Why is it that our pain is not seen? Let it be clear, this is not a call for violence. This is a call for justice. This is a call for recognition, a call for truth, and the right to dream. The right to dream of a Khalistan is a right to exist. And no government, no silence, no suppression can erase that. We are descendants of Shri Guru Gobind Singh Ji. We are the children of martyrs. We will not forget, we will not give up. The spirit of Khalistan is alive in every protest, in every ardas. And you know what? I'm proud to stand here today because in this Gurdwara Sahib, the ardas for Khalistan takes place every single day, twice a day, in front of Shri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. Whether we get it today or whether we get it tomorrow. In every heart that beats with courage and remembers who we are. So I ask you all, rise, remember, resist, and let the world know it's good. This event is absolutely fantastic. And I'm really grateful that all of you have turned up because you've got pain for what has happened to us, and we're not going to let it happen again. But it's also important for us to attend the events where we show the world what's happened, just like on Sunday, when most of us, or some of us, went to the Remembrance March. So it's really important that we show the world what's happened. So in 1984, they tried to erase us, but we are still here. We're louder, we're prouder, and we're stronger. And as long as one Sikh child remembers what happened in those blood-soaked days of 1984 and afterwards, the spirits of our shaheeds lives on. So stand tall. The world may forget, but we will remember and we will rise. And with this, I pay homage to the shaheeds of 1984. WhyGuru Ji Ka Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you to Bhai Jitendra Singh from Smedhi Gurdwara. Just some ground rules today. There's not a fire drill expected, so if it does go off, there's exits to your right there and at the back of the hall. Today, the first half, it's going to predominantly be in English, unless there is people in the room that can only understand Punjabi, then I will try to mix it up, and I think Dr. Saab can do the same as well. I'm going to be speaking for the first half an hour, and after myself is going to be Dr. Saab, and then there's going to be a question and answer on the panel. Just before I go into kind of the topic of today, again I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that came out. I've taken the time out to come, and please do, if you haven't already, spend time at the back of the hall looking at the exhibition. It is really important. After the talks, there's going to be time, hopefully with the Dr. Saab being around, he can possibly give a tour of some of the information there at the back of the exhibition as well. So today's topic is touching upon cultivating the Khalsa, and hopefully this talk, it's normally around an hour and a half, but I've tried my best to kind of cut it down into half an hour. Now the purpose of the talk is to make people understand what the Khalsa is. Now that's very hard because to understand the Khalsa, you need to be a Khalsa. And I'm not a Khalsa, I'm trying to be a Khalsa. But what the Khalsa is a complete package. And that complete package we're going to talk about today, it's important to understand what that complete package entails as a Khalsa. So cultivating the Khalsa. I'm going to start off by talking about Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj planted the Buddha of Sikhi. And within that, we are now here, where Pant Khalsa Kheti Miri, this is Guru Nanak's Buddha flourishing at the moment. The seeds have spread across the world, and this is that Guru Nanak's Khalsa at the moment. So understanding what Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj planted and how that plant was nourished, how it was irrigated, what that plant was given for that plant to eventually bear fruit, which is known as the Khalsa. So whether it was the seva that was given by the Guru Sahibs, whether it was the sacrifice of the, Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj and Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Maharaj, whether it was the teachings of humility, every single Guru Sahib gave something separate to that plant, so that seed could be nurtured and eventually the complete package which was created, which was Khalsa. The Khalsa bore fruit. And understanding that the Khalsa was already around. It wasn't the fact that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj and came and created something new. The Khalsa was Pargat. It means that the Khalsa was always around. It just was packaged, and for us to understand what the Khalsa is. Now I'm going to ask you a question here, before I go into this. If I was to ask you all here right now, what is the purpose of life? According to Sikhi, what is the purpose of our life? I'm going to go that far back. Because to understand the Khalsa, you need to understand what the mission is and how we're going to get anyone. What is the purpose of life? We say it every single day. Anybody? Don't be shy. If we're all sitting here and we don't know what the purpose of our life is, I think it's a very good place to start. What is the purpose of our life? Where do we want to be? Hanji? Meet WhyGuru. Hanji. So the purpose of this life, we read every single day in Rehra Sahib, Pei Prapat Manak De Huriya Gobind Milan Ki Ehe Teri Variya. We say that the purpose of this life is to be one with WhyGuru, to meet back with WhyGuru. Now the question I ask after this, how are we going to achieve that? As for Guru Sahib has given us a certain quorum. And this is not everything, this is some of the things. Naam being one of the main things. Without Naam, Gurbani talks about Naam in many different references, that without Naam, Bin Nawe, Jagat Kamala Fare, Mala says, Bin Nawe, there's many things that Guru Sahib talks about, that without the name, without Naam, there is nothing. And Naam is the epicenter. Now what is Naam? It's important to understand what Naam is. Naam is remembering. Naam is connecting to understand what our mission is. We meditate on the Creator to become the Creator. Tu karta, tu hua. To merge back with the Creator. Seva is important. Because we're not just here to jap Naam. If we were just here to jap Naam, then Guru Nanak Maharaj wouldn't go to the Sikh ghosts in the mountains and say, why are you staying in the mountains? Maharaj said, Hasandiyan, Kalandiyan, Kamundiyan, Kanandiyan, Vichi Oremuk. Now, a Khalsa wasn't just about jumping Naam, but it's about serving humanity as well. Now, if I'm serving humanity and I'm jumping Naam, but I don't have a red, I don't have discipline, then what you're doing in terms of your seva and your Naam, it's been lost. Your red is like your boundaries that protect your crops. And if you don't have that red, if you don't have that babek, then anyone can come in and just take your crop. So understanding that these three are, there's more than this, it's not just these three that a Sikh needs to be doing to achieve a Sikh's goal to merge back with Maharaj. Now, understanding within this, say if I was to say to you, is what you're doing to merge back with the Creator being accepted? That's a question that everyone should always ask. How do I know that I'm on the right track? How do I know that what I'm doing right now, if I'm waking up for Amritwala, if I'm doing Seva in the Gurdwara, if I'm keeping my red, how do I know what I'm doing is being accepted? It's a very, very hard question, and I was asked this once. And I found it really hard to answer. People could say, oh, it's a feeling inside. People could say that you get indications that, Guru Sahib's rewarding you in certain ways. But there's no true answer to that. But Gurbani gives a few references. Maharaj says in Gurbani that if you want to completely understand that I'm being accepted, then you need to stay within hukum. Now hukum, and to understand hukum, it's a concept that we're going to talk about. Hukum is everything Guru Sahib tells us to do. Hukum is everything. Hukum hai andar sabko, bahar hukum na karo. Everything is within that hukum. But understanding for us what hukum is. So Guru Sahib gives many hukums in Gurbani. Guru Sahib says in Gurbani, the Panj Chor, how we need to control them. Remember, control, that's the word. We can never get rid of them Panj Chor. We have to utilize them. And you're going to think, how? How do we utilize the Panj Chor? To understand the Panj Chor, Kam, lust. If you don't have lust, you can't procreate. It needs to be used. Krodh. If you don't have anger, how are you going to fight against injustice? Understanding Kam, Krodh, Lobh, greed. If you don't have greed, how are you not going to be having the greed inside to do more good? I want the greed to do more seva. I want the greed to jump more now. Attachment, more. If you don't have any attachment within you, how are you not going to be attached to your Guru? That attachment needs to be used and utilized to favor your Sikhi. And the last one, Homme. How are you going to use Homme? Remember, the Homme needs to be turned to Sahibi, to Patshahi, and always needs to go back to Guru Sahib. Ke aha roop Khalsa mero roop hai khas, Khalsa mein ho karo nivas, that this Sahibi, as standing tall as Khalsa, is his. It's not my ego, this is Guru Sahib. Ye oda hai sara kuch, ohi kara raha hai, ohi bula raha hai. So understanding that ego shouldn't be, this is me and this is what I'm doing, this always needs to relate back to Guru Sahib. Ohi kar raha hai, ohi kar raha hai. This hukum in Gurbani that tells us to control them desires. How? Now. Maharaj talks about desires in Gurbani. And in these desires in Gurbani, Guru Sahib says, Ichha Purab Sarv Sukh Datar Tanke Vase Kaam Dena. So aisa te aaye mere jeede te sarv sukh paave mere mana. That desires, what ichha do you have? Maharaj says, Vind tud hor je mangna, sir dukhan ke dukh. De naam santokiya utre man ki bhuk. That all desires can be controlled by naam. But if I was to say, I've got desires, I want a Ferrari, I've got other desires, I want things that feed my desires, that's not Sikhi. What Guru Sahib tells us that your desires should be naam, and naam fulfills all of the desires. And that's the way of controlling the desires. Fear. As a Sikh, as a Khalsa, if I was to say to you, I'm scared of spiders, which I am a little bit, would I be that complete package? Would I be the Khalsa? No, I wouldn't, because the Khalsa has attributes of Guru Sahib. And how can Guru Sahib have fear? Maharaj says, that there's no fear with this Guru Sahib. Maharaj says, Tiste upar nahi koi kaun dare, dar kiska hai? That where there's Guru Sahib, there is no fear. We say in Gurbani, har jan aisa chahiye jaisa har hi hoye. That a Sikh is the Guru and the Guru is the Sikh. Which Guru Upadesh Chalai? That the Guru is the Sikh. Now understanding if the Guru is the Sikh and the Sikh is the Guru, what are the attributes of the Guru? Guru is nirpo, he is nirvair, he doesn't have fear. So as Khalsa, we have the duty to be fearless. we have the attributes to be famous. Love. So Guru Sahib talks about this love in Gurbani. Maharaj says, Jis pyare syone ho tis agya mat chaliye. That I will die for that love. But Maharaj also talks about the love for duality. Maharaj says, An kahe ratadya, vaat to heli ram, paap kamamadya, tera koi na veli ram. That if you're going to have the love for duality, then no one's going to have your back. So love, there's a hukum around love of how we should love, who we should love, what we should love. And that is all hukum that Guru Sahib gives us as well. And last but not least, protection. So as a Khalsa, as Guru Sahib has given us hukums in Gurbani, Maharaj says, Santa mano, duta dano, ek katwari meri. That the job of a Sikh, of a Khalsa, is to protect the weak, to protect the saints, to stand up against tyranny, and to raise the dharmi. Jaikar ki dharmiya ka e papi ko dand diyo. So understanding that the Khalsa has a complete package, and that complete package is known as the Miri and the Piri. But one thing that you'll see on this picture, there's one Nishan Sahib that is slightly higher than the other. And that, if you can see, is the Piri. The Piri is always higher and it always comes first. The Deg and the Teg. We always say Deg first. Wala Deg shakao. If the Deg doesn't work, then it's the Teg. And that is the philosophy and the principles of a Khalsa, but understanding it a little bit more. If we go back to understanding what Guru Sahib has talked to us about the Khalsa, Guru Sahib says in Gurbani, Khalsa so jo ninda te aage, Khalsa so jo lade hoye aage. And you can read all the shabads that within the Khalsa, the attributes are equal. Khalsa jo naam jap kare, Khalsa jo Malaysia chade, Khalsa jo lade hoye aage. All these attributes are what Guru Sahib explains what a Khalsa is. So Khalsa, some people would say, oh no, my job as a Khalsa is to go and jap naam and meditate and do bhakti. That is an integral part, and without that, there is no Sikhi. But it's not the only thing a Sikh needs to do. A Sikh has a duty. The duty is to serve humanity, but first and foremost to serve the Panth. Because serving the Panth would serve humanity. Someone once asked me, they said, you talk about Punjab, you're running Saving Punjab, why do you only care about Punjab? Why Punjab? And the answer to that is, honestly, you tell me another civilization, you tell me another community on this planet that prays 3 times for the betterment of mankind. Sarbat Dapala. A good Sikh will do ardas 3 times a day for the Sarbat Dapala. So if you invest in Punjab, where 75% of the Sikh Qaum is currently living, you're investing in those that do ardas for Sarbat Dapala. Naturally, automatically, the world will be saved. And understanding the mission of a Khalsa, Guru Sahib says, Dharm chalavan, Sant ubaran, Dusht saban ko mool uparan. So you can understand Guru Sahib telling us that his job, his duty is to praise the saints, to raise the saints, but punish the wicked. And that is the job of the Khalsa. Now, understanding this as the Buddha of Sikhi, if we were to look at that Buddha, the Miri and the Piri, the foundations of that plant are Daya, are Dharm, are compassion, which are our fundamentals, are our Piri. And without them, we are nothing. When Guru Sahib in 1699 asked for a head, who was it the first one that gave the head? Who was it? Bhai Daya Singh Ji. And what followed Daya? Bhai Dharam Singh Ji. And if you've got Daya and Dharam, you're going to have what? Bhai? Louder please. Bhai Himmat Singh Ji. If you don't have Daya and you don't have Dharam, how are you going to have Himmat? And once you've got Himmat, you'll have discipline. You'll have Bhai Mohkam Singh Ji. And once you've got all 4 of them, that automatically leads to Bhai Sahib Singh Ji. Why? Because he stands tall. Now if I was to cut that plant from the stem, but the roots were strong, will it grow back? Absolutely. Because it has its foundations, it has its piri, it has its daya, it has its dharam. Everything you see on the outwardly is all what we show. Seva, we go out there, we do what we need to do, which is important. Why? Because if you didn't have the top, you won't be able to photosynthesize. But no one needs to see the roots. No one needs to see what time you're waking up for Matullah. No one needs to see how much Barney you're reading. That is your foundation. And without that deep roots, the top doesn't matter. You could have the beautiful flowers at the top, you could have the tallest tree at the top, a little bit of wind, Maraja Kastaya, Maraja Okha Samaya, the Drakht Thada Division. Because the foundations weren't solid. Your daya, your naam, your compassion, your seva, all them things need to be in a balance. The plant needs the roots, and the roots need the plant. And that is the package that Guru Sahib created, which is Biri and Biri. Now the Panch Singh that Guru Sahib created, they are Dharam, Himmat, Mokam, the Sahib. To understand Guru Sahib and the philosophy of the Khalsa, you can see them from this bunch. Now, during the Battle of Chamkaur, who was the first Shaheed out of the 5? Does anybody know? It's a very important story that Guru Sahib tells us. The first Shaheed out of the Panch Singh, the Panch Pyare, was Bhai Sahib Singh. Now to understand why that's important, when hardship comes, the first thing that goes is Sahibi. Is the Taj, the Hathi, the Baj. Everything went. The Kalgi had to go because Guru Sahib had to be to the Pir and leave Chamkaur. So understand that the first thing that we sacrifice, if it's hardship, is the Sahibi, is the honor. And then the next two that were Shaheed were by Mokam Singh and by Himmat Singh. Himmat, we totally, Mokam. But by Daya Singh and by Dharam Singh stayed with the Guru Sahib till the very end. They left the Battle of Chamkaur with Guru Sahib. And Guru Sahib is telling you that jada thodi Daya ya thoda Dharam ya, that can never change. Sahibi might break, but our foundation is that Daya and that Dharam. Now understanding that complete package is what makes the Khalsa. And the Khalsa for me is a perfect human being. It's the most perfect human being you can have. And these examples, I mean, we don't need to justify what the Khalsa is with examples. We don't need to, but I've given them just for those people that can understand. Just look at the Kisan Morcha. It wasn't that long ago. The people, the orphans, the children, the beggars of Delhi were saying, who are these godly men that have come with the beards and turbans? We have never been so happy in our lives. They play with us, they feed us. And these are beggars on the streets of Delhi. This gave the chalak of Begumpura, that gave the chalak of Khalsa Raj, that gave the chalak of that, where there's Sikh Raj, that no one goes hungry, that everyone is protected. That was in the streets of Delhi only a few years ago. Understanding that within Maharaj saying, Nanak Naam Chardi Kala Tere Pane Sarbat Da Pala was a very big vanguard to the world that we're here to serve the world, but to serve ourselves. Why? To understand first, to serve the world, you need to be happy at home. Maharaj says, Kar Sukh Vasya, Ba Sukh Paya. And to understand your duty to the Panth is very important. But also you can see this quotation, I'm not going to read it out, by Bertrand Russell. You know, he picked apart every single term and found flaws in it. And that's what he had to say about Sikhi. So, and it's not just that modern. If you look at, the farmers' protest, yeah, but even Grok, this new AI that was created, it was uncensored, it was fed with many parts of information, learning models, LLMs. And when asked it, what's the savior for the world, they talked about Sikhi. So the truth is out there, people are understanding the truth, it's just us. This Parchar that we were doing, I shouldn't have been standing here talking to Sikh. This Parchar was for non-Sikh. And this is our duty. Once you get to a level where you understand this, it's your duty to go and do Parchar to other Sikh. Now, my understanding of that complete package wasn't hundreds of years ago. My understanding of that complete package was within our parents' lifetimes. We got Dr. Sahib here today who's going to talk about the experiences with Santji. And Santji for me was that complete package. Absolute complete package. Sant Sapai, Saint Soldier, Deg Deg, Miri Piri, which completes that package. And also with that, Chief Bhai Alok Singh Babbar, who understood, there's people in this room that spent time with Chief Bhai Alok Singh Babbar. And they've told stories of, he had so much daya in him that the butchers, just have a look at the back of the pictures, the butchers and how they were killing our families, our innocent. Before doing Soda on them, Bhai Alok Singh would do part for them, would do ardas for them, and would still say to the Singhs, do we need to do this? That's how much compassion he had. He had so much bhakti, his energy, he had naam abhyas rom rom. There's stories of his arm brushing past people's ears and them hearing WhyGuru 1,000 times within their ears. It was rom rom. His eyes were so powerful. There's stories, first-hand stories I've managed to document, that he would lock eyes with people and they'd fall into trances or they'd start following him home and walk behind him. And we all know the story of Bhai Alok Singh Shahidi. Why do you think they took his eyes out? The people torturing him for information couldn't look him in the eyes. They thought he was doing spells. That's why they cut his tongue out. They're like, he's making these spells. So you can understand the power of Naam and Bani and that daya and compassion they still had within them. Santji, the more I say is less. And I'm not going to talk about Santji because we've got Dr. Sahib here today who's going to talk about their experiences with Santji. So it's coming towards the end of my talk. And I just want to finish off by saying our Bhutta. Guru Nanak Maharaj planted a Bhutta. Every single one of you are seeds from that Bhutta. Now everything we're doing is also planting a seed. If I was a seed and I was sitting on top of the soil, would I flourish? What does a seed need to do to grow? It needs to go down. Pehla maran kabul, jeevan ki shadyas, ho sabna ki ren ka, ta aao hamare paas. The first step is humility. Down, nivana. That seed needs to go down. And once that seed goes down, then it can flourish. It needs to understand. If the cup's up here and the jug's down here, how are you going to get water in the jug? Lower yourself. The biggest thing to becoming a Khalsa, the first step is to give your cease to Guru Sahib. People talk about Shahidi, ma Shahidi pauni hai. The first Shahidi is taking Amrit. When you give your head to the Guru, there's nothing left of yours. Tana sab saump Guru ko. Tusi ta saump daya. Odi marji hai je thoda cease lena hai je nahi lena, je thanu Shahidi di daat deni hai je nahi leni. That's his choice. Our job is to serve as much as we can, for as long as we can. And understanding that the concept of the Khalsa is the Miriya Birina. Everything you're doing is planting a seed. One thing I say to you, those of you that have got younger brothers and sisters, if you've got a small tree, a sapling, you can uproot that and take that to any garden and plant it. That is the young minds in our community. You can plant them in whichever garden you want and they'll flourish. It's very hard to replant those deep-rooted ways. People always say, oh, I'll take Amrit when I'm older. I used to have a friend that says, "Jodo mere dand nikal gaye, udo main amrit chak lunga, then I can't eat meat." There's many excuses that people make. Oh, what do you kar lange? But the problem you have there, your tree is growing in a garden. The roots are getting deeper, and it's going to be very hard to change. The time is now. There is no tomorrow. There is only now. It's the present. Guru wale bano. Guru nu apna sees do. And I tell you what, there is no turning back. It'll be the best thing you ever do. Everything you're doing is you're planting a seed. There's three things that plant seeds. Man, bach, karam. What you're thinking, what you're saying, and what you're doing. Whatever you think normally turns to speech. And whatever you say to people, you affirm it, you do it. So the biggest thing to control first is your mind. And Maharaj says, Man jeeta, jag jeet. What is the world in front of us? We'll conquer the world if you conquer the mind. So understanding that starting from here, the only way to counter that mind before it gets to your speech is Naam. Naam stops it here. Then it stops it here. And then it stops it from becoming an action. So that seed that we're planting every single second, Maharaj says that seed should be the seed of Naam. Akha, Jiva, Visra, Marja. That should be the seed of Naam. And in Naam and Bani, they are Dharam. Let's get them solid. Let's become Khalsa. And Maharaj will take seva from us for Khalsa Raj. But understanding that the Miri and the Piri are like two wings on a bird. There's many that will go out there and say, I'm going to get my bhakti to a certain level and then I'm going to start doing seva. I've seen many of the people say that, and 20 years later, the bhakti is still not at a certain level. Understanding whatever you can do for the Panth. The Panth is your family. The more you give back into the Panth, the more you get. Maharaj says, Khave, Kharche, Ral Mil Pai, Tod Na Ave, Vad Ho Jai. And understanding that the Panth is a family. It's like a garden. And in that garden, there's many different flowers. Celebrate that. Celebrate the fact that we have differences. Celebrate the fact that we have got different jathebandiyan, that it's not all the same and everything's the same. We all have a part to play. Understand what your part is. Serve. Become Khalsa. Give your cease to the Guru. Once you've given your cease to the Guru, then Maharaj will do ultimate blessings. Now I'm going to invite Dr. Saab to begin their presentation. And after the Dr. Saab's presentation, there will be a question and answer. WhyGuru Ji Ka Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji Ki Fateh.
Naham Jati Sati Nahi Padaya Murk Mugdha Janam Taya Pran Bhaktanan Tinki Sarana Jain Tu Nahi Visarya Gरीब नवाज कलगियों वाले पातशाह तिन्हां दे साजे सोहने पंथ दे सोहने फुल ते फल रूप गुरु की संगत दास दी फतेह प्रवान करो गज के बुलाओ वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह। Very powerful words, a very powerful goals, agenda. I wish, I pray that each one of us could get to the bar which Bhai Gurpreet Singh Ji has set for us. It's hard, but it's not impossible. We have examples of it. Bhai Jatinder Singh, he spoke about rise, remember, and resist. Very cool words. They rhyme with each other as well, but they have a very deep meaning. The reality of rising and remembering and resisting, I think is more internal than external. But in this day and age, we don't really look at it that way. And I think the reason for that is our very limited and narrow scope of our thoughts. By good reason, you mentioned man, bacha, karma. Thought, man, bachan, te karma. I'm going to make a lot of statements. I've been fortunate to have spent a few moments with folks who we live with. At the bottom of our heart, we have a lot of shraddha, a lot of satkar, a lot of pyar for them. We can do as much talk as we want, but are we prepared to walk the talk? That's the $1 million question, like they say in the US. Are we really ready to walk the talk? And if we are not, we got some serious thinking to do. I feel that as a panth, and this is something which every individual, har buzurg, har mai, har ਭਰਾ, ਹਰ ਬੱਚੇ ਬੱਚੀ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਅਹਿਸਾਸ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਸ ਕੌਮ ਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿਸ ਪੰਥ ਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਸਰਮਾਇਆ, the capital, the wealth, the real wealth that we can always reach into, and it will never ever bottom out, is the spiritual content, the adhyatmic content, which by Guru Singh Ji referred to as Naam. That's the beginning. That's the beginning. We need to be aware. If we really want to experience the state of the Panth, you know, we all talk about being a part of the Panth. ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਥ ਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਬਣੀਏ, ਪਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਪੰਥ ਹੈ? ਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ, ਹਾਂ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਕਾ, ਖਾਲਸਾ ਮੇਰੋ, ਓਤ ਪੋਤ ਸਾਗਰ ਬੁੰਦੇਰੋ. Being a part of the Khalsa and having those values of Khalsa are very important, and they're not exclusive. So, and we also need a very motivated, awakened, alert Sangatan. So, a spiritual capital, a common and powerful history which binds us together. Both the spiritual component and our ityas bind us together like a group. And that is what brings forth an awakened Sikh, an alert Sikh, a Sikh who is aware of the consequences of every decision that he or she makes. So, my focus is to speak on my experiences with Sant Ji. I'll begin with this statement. मेरा पिंड नारंगवाल नानके मेरे, पिताजी साढ़े सियालकोट तो आए. My father lost everything in what I refer to as the first genocide of the current genocides, 1947. On my father's side, we lost everything. My father went to school, he got good education, became an engineer, and he was able to raise us. And he loved me dearly. But for all the love, that I received from my dad, if somebody was to ask me, which one would you prefer? The 15 to maybe 20 minutes cumulative total time I spent with Santji, I would sacrifice everything for those 20, 30 minutes. Everything. Because of the reasons I'm going to show you. ਅੱਜ ਤੋਂ 41 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ, I mean, we gathered together, here to commemorate the 41st anniversary of the June 84 Gurdwara, the genocide. By the way, a lot of people are not comfortable calling June 84 as the genocide. They find it more convenient for obvious reasons, because they're not comfortable, because they don't understand the convictions. They don't believe through the bottom of their heart that when Santji took up arms, that was the right time to take up arms. The 41st anniversary, ਅੱਜ ਤੋਂ 41 years ago, I remember laying alone in a dark dorm room. I was in medical school. In a city very far away from Punjab, in India. I was, I think, in second year of medical school. And for 2 nights and 2 days, I hadn't had the himmat, the courage to get out of bed and turn the lights on. The whole day, the whole night, the whole day, the whole night. And the 5th night, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਆਇਆ, ਮੈਂ ਬਿਸਤਰੇ 'ਚ ਪਿਆ ਸੀ, ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲੇ ਇੱਕ ਛੋਟਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਜ਼ਿਸਟਰ ਸੀਗਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਵਾਰੀ-ਵਾਰੀ ਆ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਸੀ. I would sometimes turn to BBC London, I would sometimes go to All India Radio, and I had no clue what was happening, except that there was intense fighting going on in Punjab. In Punjab, not in Amritsar alone. On the 6th, I think it was 3 p.m., well, on All India Radio announced that the body of Sant Gyani Jarnail Singh Ji and Bhai Sahib Prem Singh Ji had been discovered. And I'd listened to Sant Ji's speeches and his instructions, where he said, ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੀ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀ ਦੀ ਖਬਰ ਮਿਲੇ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ 5 ਜਕਾਰੇ ਛੱਡ ਦਿਓ. Only I can still remember, I don't think I can convey the emotion, how I said those 5 jakaare. I could not. ਮੈਂ ਛੱਡੇ, ਪਰ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਕੀ ਫੀਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਸੀ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ. ਮੈਂ ਨਾ, after 1984, I think I visited Punjab after I came to the United States in 1994 a few times, and I got a chance to meet with A.R. Darshi. I think there's a book in the back, A.R. Darshi. He wrote that book, The Gallant Defender, Jambaz Rakha. I went to talk to him, and he shared an anecdote about Santji. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧਕ ਇੱਥੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਸ਼ਾਰਾ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ ਵੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਨਾ ਮੈਂ ਲੈ ਲਾਂ, ਅਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਘਰ ਵੀ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੈ, ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਮਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਵੀ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੋਣਾ ਹੈ. ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਦਰਸ਼ੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ, ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਸੰਤ ਜਰਨੈਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਬ੍ਰਦਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਓਲਡਰ ਬ੍ਰਦਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲੇ ਬਾਘੇ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਦਫ਼ਤਰ 'ਚ ਆਏ. ਮੈਂ ਬਲਾਕ ਡਿਵੈਲਪਮੈਂਟ ਆਫਿਸਰ ਸੀਗਾ, ਅਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਆਏ ਅਤੇ ਭਾਈ ਜਗਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ, ਹਿਜ਼ ਓਲਡਰ ਬ੍ਰਦਰ, the eldest brother amongst the seven. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਕੰਮ ਕਿਹਾ, ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਸੁਣੀ. Then I turned to Bhai Jagjit Singh and I asked him, I said, this younger brother of yours, is he always going to live like a hermit? Isn't he ever going to do something worthwhile? I mean, you guys, you are pretty well off, but he doesn't do anything. And he said, I was so mistaken. 30 years down the line, when I look at, he said, what Sant Jarnail Singh Ji was able to accomplish, and I look at him as a sadhu, as a hermit, I mean, who has no interest in worldly affairs. I can't even believe it. It's unbelievable. And I think things which I'll share with you are equally unbelievable. And you know why? You know, each one of us, and I'm talking to the youth, each one of us, through our lifespans, you can divide your life into formative years and productive years. What we do in our formative years, the wealth we gather, the knowledge we get in, the kind of knowledge, will determine the nature of our productive years. So, I think with Sant Jarnail Singh Ji, मैं वाली गल पहला शायद कई बार शेयर की है, ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੌਕਾ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲੇ ਬਹਿਣ ਦਾ, oh my God, it was really intense. Sitting next to him, ਤਖਤ ਪੋਸ਼ ਤੇ, it was a different experience. My ears ਕੰਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਸੇਕ ਨਿਕਲਦਾ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਮੈਂ ਨਾਲ ਬੈਠਾਂ, ਮੇਰੀਆਂ ਲੱਤਾਂ ਸ਼ੇਕ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼, I can't form words. And to experience that, you have to be there. And I think the reason why I felt the way I felt, you might have read about Santji's early life, how he was only 10 years old when his whole daily investment was in doing Japji Sabde part. At age 10, people have not yet, remember, the formative years, one has not yet been corrupted by the ways of the world. And when you start doing Japji Sabde part at that age, I don't think it's a good example, but I'm going to use it anyway, it's not a good analogy. It's like a filter. It's like a filter. Everything which goes into you, whether it goes through your eyes, whether it goes through your ears, whether it goes through as your meal, is filtered with Japji Sabde part. And it creates within the self a big, big sarovar of Amrit, a big lake through which you can see through and through. There is nothing which pollutes it. It's so clean. You can man saaf hona chahiye. And I think that's what makes people do those unbelievable things. Sant Ji, Sant Gyani Jarnail Singh Ji, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਤੋਂ ਮੋਗੇ ਕੋਲੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੈ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਖਾਂ ਦਾ, ਪਿੰਡ ਤੋਂ ਤੁਰ ਕੇ ਅਨੰਦਪੁਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜਾਂਦੇ, ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਨਾਲ ਚੱਲ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਤੁਰ ਕੇ ਕਾਹਨੂੰ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੈ, why walk, we can take the bus, it saves so much time. And Sant Jarnail Singh Ji asks him this question. He says, do you think we'll be able to do more Japji Sahib the part if we go on foot, or we can do more if we go by bus? And he said, obviously if we go by foot. And he said, that's why I choose to go by foot. Now what kind of yardsticks do we use to measure the worth of our life? When he reaches out to me and he asks me, to Bani padda hunna hai? तो मेरा response है होना थोड़ी पढ़ता when I'm not actually doing any Bani other than Panj Paudiyaan of Japji Sahib from a Hindi Gurkha. I can realize now that he's trying to hand me over a key which will open each and every lock that I have to face in my life. But so unfortunate for me that I refused to take that key from him. I lost that opportunity. And think about it every single day. All I live with is a bunch of regret, pachtawa. Now that I've shared this with you, you have an opportunity to come out the same bachan. To come out the same bachan. And it will have the same effect that he intended for me. Especially the younger folks. You know, my Pardasi about his Jivan, and he said the day of his Anand Karaj, Santji returns from the wedding, and when he comes home, he sits with his nephew and he calls him and he says, you know what? I'm feeling so happy today. I'm so pleased today. And his nephew says, Chacha, bhi tera vyah hoya, bhi tenu to khushi honi hai aap pe. Oh kehta nahi. Odi khushi nahi gayi. Maine bahut khushi kra di hai. Kehte mera Nitnem pura ho gaya. Mujhe is gal da fikr si कि आज इन्ने आज ਅਸੀਂ ਰੁਝੇਵਿਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਵਾਂਗੇ. We would be so busy today that I wouldn't be able to complete my Nitnem. And don't think about Nitnem as those Panj Baniya in the morning is for Panj Granthi with 100 Japji Sahib de Paath. And that's what he calls accomplishment. मैं ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਇੱਕ ਥੱਲੇ ਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਵਰਕ ਲੇ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ मैं ग्राउंड वर्क ले कर रहा कि उस शख्सियत दे पिछे जिन्होंने मैं स्पिरिचुअल कैपिटल कहना कितना dense and it's available to you and me as well. It's available, it's free of cost. All we need is a little sadaq, a little commitment, that's it. You know, Singh Sahib by Kashmir Singh, he was appointed the head Granthi of Sri Akal Takht Sahib after 1986, Sarbat Khalsa. He died several years ago in America. I happened to meet him, be with him, and he said, did you hear about Santji's visit to Chamkaur Sahib? I said, no. He said, didn't your Mamaji tell you about this? I said, I don't remember him talking to me about that. And he said, but she did talk to me about it when we were in jail together. I said, what was it about? He said, after the Diwan in one of the villages, it was in Narangwar. In the morning, Santji came up to my Mamaji, Sardar Manohar Singh, and he said, I want you to bring your jeep at the main entrance. Once we get home after the morning katha, I want to go with you to someplace. I want to visit someplace. And I didn't think twice about it. He said, went and I brought the jeep, and like those jeeps are in Punjab, those diesel engines, they make a lot of noise. And Sant was in his room and he heard the jeep was there. He just got up and he rushed down the steps and he came and sat into the jeep and he said, "Pajala, let's go." And I just pressed on the accelerator and we just drove through. And a few miles, Sant was giving me directions. I don't know where he wanted to go. He was giving me directions, go this way, go this way, go this way. And once I was, driving next to a canal, ਇੱਕ ਨਹਿਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਡਰਾਈਵ ਕਰਦਾ, ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਨ ਨਹਿਰ ਲਈ ਚੱਲ. So I realized, when you go along the canals in Punjab, they all lead to Anandpur Sahib. ਨਹਿਰ ਲਈ ਚੱਲ. And I suddenly had a thought. I said, am I crazy or what? I've brought Santji by himself. There are no bodyguards with him. What's going to happen if the police stop us? Or some other folks who are not so well inclined with Santji might attack us? I made a big mistake. The Singh, the horse Sangat, I'm going to beat him up. ਤੂੰ ਆ ਕੀ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ? ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੰਤ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੋਰਸਿਆਂ ਗੱਡੀ ਚਲਾ, ਧਿਆਨ ਲਾ, ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੱਲ, ਚਲਾਈ ਚੱਲ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੇਨ ਰੋਡ ਆ ਗਈ, there were like green, lush, trees, ਦੋਨੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਸੜਕਾਂ ਦੇ, ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਚਲਾਈ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਮੈਂ, ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿਤੇ ਵੇਖ ਕੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਗੱਡੀ ਰੋਕੀ, ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸ਼ਰਲਾ ਮਾਰਿਆ, ਮੈਂ ਜੰਗਲ ਜਾਇਆ, ਸ਼ਰਲਾ ਮਾਰਿਆ. ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਬੁਸ਼ਸ ਜੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਜੀਪ ਖੜਾਤੀ. ਮੈਂ ਜੀਪ ਖੜਾਤੀ. ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਜੀਪ ਚੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਨਿਕਲਿਆ, ਤੇ I don't know, from nowhere, ਉੱਥੇ there were like a bunch of Singhs in Niang Singh Bani. And a few of them were on horseback. ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਨਿਹੰਗ ਸਿੰਘ ਅਨੰਦਪੁਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਮੇਬੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵਹੀਰ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ, ਥੋੜੇ ਜਿਹੇ 5-7 ਜਣੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ, ਇਹ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ. ਪਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਅੰਦਰ ਇੱਕ ਫੀਅਰ ਵੀ ਆਇਆ. ਮੈਂ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਗੱਡੀ ਗਾਥੋਂ ਤੇ ਰੋਕਤੀ. I don't know, what these guys have on their mind. By the time, I'm thinking about this, I'm getting out of the jeep, Santji is way out of the bushes. And by the time I kind of go halfway close to where Santji is, he's done with his thing and he's coming over. And there is this singer in Nilavana who seems like the jathedar of those Singhs. He's walking towards Santji. And I want to I try to walk faster so that I could get to the Nalka before the other Singh goes there. And I was unable to. He gets to the Nalka before I could. And they're all quiet. They're not saying a word. And this singer, he pumps the water out of the Nalka, and Santji apne hath dhonde hai, pair dhonde hai, te tur pende. And he catches up to me. And he catches up to me, and he turns to me and he said, "Dekh liya?" Till then he said, I didn't have a clue what was going on. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹੋ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆ 8-10 ਬੰਦੂਕਾਂ ਵਾਲੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਪਹਿਰੇ ਤੇ ਲੱਗੇ ਹੋ. From that spot on to wherever we had to go, all through that journey, I could then hear with me ਘੋੜਿਆਂ ਪੈੜਾਂ ਦੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼. Unbelievable. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਬਈ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੰਤ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਗਏ, before the start of the morcha, Santji never visited kabaddi or akhade or things like that. But he was sitting in Mahapurakh Sant Baba Gurmukhi Singh Ji, Kar Seva Wale, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਡੇਰੇ ਤੇ, ਤੇ bunch of young men, ਕਈ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੋਨੇ ਵੀ ਸੀ, ਕਈ ਦਾੜੀਆਂ ਕੱਟਣੀਆਂ ਵਾਲੇ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਉੱਥੇ ਆ ਗਏ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਖਾੜੇ 'ਚ ਚੱਲੋ, ਅਖਾੜੇ 'ਚ ਚੱਲੋ। ਤੇ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਖ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਕਈਆਂ ਨੇ, ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਿੰਘ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਖ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਅਖਾੜੇ 'ਚ ਕੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੋਣਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਸੰਗਤ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਦੀਵਾਨ ਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਵੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ, ਅਖਾੜੇ 'ਚ ਕੀ ਲੈਣਾ, ਅਸਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਅਖਾੜੇ 'ਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਂਦੇ। ਤੇ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਪੁੱਛੀ ਆ ਕੇ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅਖਾੜੇ ਤੇ ਆ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, ਸੰਤ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਇੱਧਰ ਉੱਧਰ ਦੋ ਤਿੰਨ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ, ਇਸ਼ਾਰਾ ਕੀਤਾ, ਸੰਤ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਚਲੋ ਚੱਲੀਏ। ਉਹ ਖੁਸ਼ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਣੇ। ਜਦੋਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਗਏ, ਉੱਥੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਜਣੇ, ਉੱਥੇ ਕੋਈ ਰੈਸਲਿੰਗ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਕੋਈ ਕੁਛ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਅਖਾੜੇ 'ਚ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕੁਛ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਣੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆ ਕੇ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਪੈਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਹੱਥ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਲਾ ਸਕਦਾ, ਉੱਥੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਨੇੜੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਮਤਲਬ ਉੱਥੇ ਤਾਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਦੱਸ ਕੇ ਹਟੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹਿਣਾ ਹੀ, ਇਟ ਵਾਜ਼ ਐਨ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ। ਤੇ one very ਕਹਿਰੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਸਰੀਰ ਵਾਲਾ ਬੜਾ ਹਲਕਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਇੱਕ ਸਿੱਖ ਆਇਆ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਈ, ਤੇ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਈ, ਤੇ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੇ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਇਹਦਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਰੱਖੋ। Somebody comes over to Santji and he tags him and says, take care of him. Look at him carefully. ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ, he was like an ordinary, ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਪਹਿਲਵਾਨ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਲੱਗਦਾ। And later on it turns out that was Bhaiban Singh. That was Bhaiban Singh. You have a picture of him right there. Major Jagjit Singh. You know, we talk about Major General Shubek Singh, right? And the things, the mighty things that he did before he achieved Shahidi. Major Jagjit Singh comes to visit Sant Jarnail Singh Ji in Guru Nanak Niwas. And he does small talk, and he said, mere laik koi seva hove to dasyo. Mahapurakh. He smiles at him. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਮਾਂ ਆਇਆ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਆਪੇ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੈ, ਸਮਾਂ ਆਇਆ ਆਪੇ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਣਾ। And believe it or not, Major Jagjit Singh in June 1984 is given the responsibility of attacking the headquarters of Damdami Taksal at Mehta Chowk. And he brings his bunch of soldiers, the 19 Maratha regiment, and he knows what needs to be done. Major Jagjit Singh reaches out to the people inside the complex, and he says, you know, I want to help you guys. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਬੈਠੇ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਸੁਣੋ, listen to me, I'm not here to attack you, I want to help you. How could a soldier help us? The question is. And then somehow or the other he makes contact with the senior people in the Mehta Chowk headquarters. And this is all online. This is public information. And the way they kind of create this whole, they plan it out in such a way that no weapons are discovered in Mehta Chowk. All of those wanted Gursikhs who were inside the complex are allowed to kind of leave when the curfew is relaxed a little bit by this Major Jagjit Singh. And he uses his own jeep to get all those weapons and cartridges and stuff like that, which was inside the complex, and takes it over to his in-laws' village, which was close by. And for this, Major Jagjit Singh is dismissed from service. This is how easy doing seva for the Panth is. I really mean it's easy. I mean, for him it was a no-brainer. मैं की सेवा कर सकता हूँ? Panth before profession. For him, everything else was secondary. Later on, he took Amrit. I don't know where Major Jagjit Singh is now. We could talk more about Sant Kani Jarnail Singh ji. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਜੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਸਿੰਘ ਸੀਗੇ, you know, I don't know. Please don't test me on this. The state of things currently, don't ask me questions about that. I feel very ashamed. Santji visited our home in Odisha. Jalapani Chakra lost. My mom, I was kind of, 13, maybe 14? And the whole bunch of these Gursikhs, Jatha, they come with Santji. Sant Kartar Singh Barera wale bhi naal si. I'm told, you know, I wasn't able to. You know, us mauke te mainu pata nahi si. Te my mom prepared garam jal. Bada pink jiha drink hunda, bada swad hunda. Te wo serve karta sareyan. 60-70 jane hoye. And after it was served, people have started to drink it. Santji was engaged in a little small talk with Sant Kartar Singh Ji Badayana. He didn't pick up or taste the garam jal yet. And when he did, by Ram Singh Sultanpur wale naal sige, Kuldeep Singh Muchal naal si, odo mainu aj bhi yaad hai unna di shakal, first ever smiling face by Kuldeep Singh Muchal da. Te Santa ne kiha Ram Singh nu, jathédar nu, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਥੇਦਾਰਾ ਉਹ ਬੀਬੀ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿ ਉਹ ਮਿੱਠਾ ਪਾਉਣਾ ਭੁੱਲ ਗਏ। ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਕੰਪਲੇਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਮਿੱਠਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾਇਆ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੁਕਮ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਮਿਲੇ ਉਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਨ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ। ਜਦੋਂ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਮਿੱਠਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾਇਆ, ਬੀਬੀ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਦਿਓ ਜਾ ਕੇ, ਫਟਾਫਟ ਜੱਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਮਿੱਠਾ ਕੰਸਨਟਰੇਟ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਗਲਾਸਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਥੋੜਾ ਥੋੜਾ ਪੋਰ ਕਰਤਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿੱਠਾ ਮਿਲ ਗਿਆ। ਕੱਲੇ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀ, ਮੈਂ ਇੱਕ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਉਸ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਪਿਆ, ਉਸ ਦ੍ਰਿੜਤਾ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਪਿਆ। ਐਵੇਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹ ਫਿਰ ਅੰਦਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਤੋਂ ਮੂਹਰੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣ ਨਾਲ ਆਡਾ ਲੈਣਾ ਕੋਈ ਕਰ। ਸੰਤ ਸੁਨੇਹਾ ਭੇਜਦੇ ਆ ਨਿਕਲਣਾ ਨਿਕਲ ਜਾਓ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਸ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਸੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਹੁਣ ਤੇ ਸਾਕੇ ਮਰ ਚਲੇ। Easier said than done. So I'm ending here. We need to walk the talk. Extremely important. I just don't want you guys to leave this hall this evening just thinking of a guy who came from California and shared a bunch of stories with you, because we are so used to stories, all the stories. These stories, if you really think about them, if you really pay attention to these stories, they have the ability, the power, the potential to change our lives. And we better start thinking about that. I feel a little hard, it's difficult for me to speak in English, because this is the Englishman's language. That same Englishman which robbed us of our heritage, of our values, and we now like to live like the Englishmen. Rise, remember, resist. WhyGuru Ji Ka Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji Ki Fateh.
Bole So Nihal! And WhyGuru Ji Ka Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji Ki Fateh. There's going to be a question and answer. There is some pre-written questions out. Paisab, sorry I don't know your name, Paisab. Paisab will be reading the questions out that have been asked from the Sangat. If there is anyone who has any questions that they want to ask today, additionally to these questions, we're not going to ask you guys to put your hands up. Actually, we will ask you to put your hands up, but Baban Singh, standing over there, will come over to you and get the question. Because some of the questions you might ask we might already have. So if you do want to ask a question, just raise your hand. Baban Singh will make his way over to you and come give Paisab the question. So I'm going to hand over to Paisab now. I'll say that Punjabi ਹੁਣ ਸਵਾਲ ਜਵਾਬ ਦਾ ਮੌਕਾ ਮਿਲਣਾ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਸਵਾਲ ਹੋਗਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੁੱਛ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਸਵਾਲ ਹੈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਹੱਥ ਖੜਾ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ ਤੇ ਬਬਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਆ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਸਵਾਲ ਲੈ ਲੂਗਾ ਤੇ ਪੈਨਲ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਜਾਊਗਾ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ
WhyGuru Ji Ka Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji Ki Fateh. And the first thing we want to say is a massive thank you, massive thanwad from the youth to all the speakers today, because things like this don't happen often. We don't often get to get the file and this knowledge. So just eternally grateful for the incredible stuff that's been told here today. And just get straight into the questions. So the first thing is, sometimes these topics, they give us a lot of pain. And that pain is something that we can use to fuel our Sikhi. So how can we turn that pain and that trauma of 1984, of Sangharsh, into that spiritual strength, into that Jardi Kala for today's generation of Sikh? And that question is open to whoever, and please feel free to build off what each other said.
Sorry, could you just repeat the question?
So, sometimes these topics give us a lot of pain. How can we use that pain to fuel our Sikhi, to fuel what we can be, to give us strength and Jardi Kala in today's generation?
First of all, WhyGuru Ji Ka Khalsa. I think the main thing is always looking back at those that came before us. It's very important that we always constantly remember our shaheeds and remember their sacrifices as well. If we have a look at our past history, obviously today's topic is about 1984, and we have a look at those shaheeds, their Sikhi, their struggle, they were also in their lifetimes talking about the shaheeds that came before them as well. So if they continued and if they sat back and they just felt that pain and they didn't do anything, they just listened to these stories and they thought, oh, okay, that this is too hard to listen to. You know, they just sat back and they didn't really act on those shaheed things. We wouldn't have those shaheed things that we're talking about today as well, because they wouldn't have acted, they wouldn't have done all those Gurdwara, all those sacrifices, all those morche, they wouldn't have done those if they don't act. If you're going to sit there and you're going to listen to these stories and you're going to go home and tomorrow you're not going to remember them, then we're going to stay in that one constant position. We're not going to be able to move forward because we're not acting. So don't let that hurt, don't let them stories of those things, those experiences make you feel down and make you feel like, oh, I don't know what to do. Act on it, remember them. Just because it's June 1984, don't make this the time to only post about it. Constantly remember them, not just in the June month. That's a very big thing. You'll see on social media that most of the posts about June 1984 come in the month of June. And why is that? It's because there's no hype to it the next few months that come after June. Don't stay in one position. That's the worst thing that you can do for yourself. And they say that to forget a Holocaust is to kill twice. To forget a genocide is to kill twice. Let's not be a part of the genocide. We've just had one genocide 40 years ago. Let's not repeat another one just because we couldn't be bothered to get up and act. Just because we couldn't be bothered to raise awareness of these Shaheed Singhs, just because we couldn't be bothered to remember about these Shaheed Singhs other than in the month of June.
I'll just make 2 points. Whoever feels the pain is very fortunate, because you only feel pain for those who you are close to. So it's a good thing to experience that pain. But then if this pain is putting you down, then obviously we need to be a little concerned. I think whether it is this pain or any other pain, the solution is the same. And the solution is in the Shabad. We are not like the other people of faith. We are different. We are Guru Nanaks. And remember, Sabte Vada Satguru Nanak Jin Kal Rakhi Meri. Always remember this. And the Gurbani isn't just knowledge. It is the mantra which brings us from this level to Chardita, where pain is developed into effort. That's all I'll say.
Just a final point for me. Maybe not. So just a final point for me was every day we remember our shaheeds. You know, in our ardas we say, Jina Singha Simnane Dharm Het Sees Ditte, Band Band Khatai, Khopriyan Lahaiyan, Chadkhriyan Te Chade, Uduldiyan Degar Chawade Gaye, Khanni Khanni Guzara Kita, Bachyan De Tote Kara Ke Galas Har Pwaye, Sawaman Pisan Pise, Jilla Katiyan, Topa, Tanka, De Jawab, De Shatiyan, De Ke Apne Shatiyan Nal Goliyan De Jawab Ditte. Everything we say about Itihas, we remember it every single day, and there's a reason why that was put in the Ardas. It's to keep the fire inside us alive, to understand that the reason we stand tall today, the reason we can walk this path today is because of those that sacrificed before us. Someone once said to me, walking through Darbar Sahib is every single step you take, there's been 100 Shaheediyan, just so that Darbar Sahib could be there today. So it's the pain, but turning that dukh into daru, turning that pain into the effort that we should be giving, because those that sacrificed everything, they've done their duty. Now it's our duty. Every generation was inspired by the generation before. If Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj, if Guru Har Gobind Sahib Maharaj wouldn't have started the Miri Piri if Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj didn't give Shahidi. And then the Khalsa wouldn't have been created if Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Maharaj didn't give Shahidi. Similarly, the Banda Singh Bahadur only came about because of the Char Sahibzade, by Taru Singh, Sukha Singh, Mehtab Singh, Bota Singh, Garja Singh, how every generation was inspiring the generation. Even later on, Gadri Babbe, Babbar Akali, then later on you had Bhai Fauja Singh. Bhai Fauja Singh led on to Santji. Santji led on to the next generation and wave of Shahidiyan, and those that are in jail today. Jahidar Jagtar Singh, Awara, Bhai Tara, Bhai Pyoro, all them things that are today, that are that representation of the Sangharsh still being alive, they're sitting in our jails today. The question is, when your kids ask you, and you're older, they did their part, what did you do? Now it's not about picking up a gun and going fighting or giving Shahidi, that's Guru Sahib's choice. But to keep the fire alive is to keep the conversation going. To keep the fire alive is to keep that research going, to understand what happened to us. Those people that forget their history, history repeats itself. So it's very important. Take your time. Dr. Sahib has put huge efforts into that exhibition at the back. Everyone make it your duty that you walk through and you read that exhibition before you go home. That's it.
Hanji WhyGuru Ji Ka Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji Ki Fateh. So, from personal experience and things that happen inside the Gurdwara Sahib or challenges that we face, I'm a firm believer that if we have faith on our Shaheeds, if we have faith on the Qurbani that they have done, and we keep them in our thoughts, in our adasa, they will be around us to protect us. They will be around us to take this pain away. They will be around us to get to our goal. When you guys leave the Gurdwara Sahib, when you go down, and if some of you are going to go towards the Chab Langar, but everyone, when you do leave the Gurdwara Sahib, carry on past the Langar Hall, and there's a gallery that's been created there called the Martyrs of the Sikh Homeland, Khalistan, and read the Jeevani of those Shaheeds. We see the Qurbani that they have done. What's the most expensive or the most valuable thing that we can give to someone? It's either our time or our life. And those things, those Singhaniya, those Pachangi, those children, gave that for us. So, yes, there is pain, but the mission that they started, it is on our shoulders now. I'm not going to say that we're going to complete it, but what we can do is carry it forward. To keep that flame burning is everyone's responsibility. So, the Shaheed things, Guru Sahib the Hagaya, obviously Almighty, but the Shaheed things, when we think about them in our adasa, when we think about them in things that we're about to do, just like when Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj sent Baba Banda Singh Ji Bahadur. Now if you physically look at it, the comparison, on one side, the Mughal army was much stronger, but Guru Sahib said that Thwade Panj Beer, Panj Teer, te Thwade Aare Dware, Guru Sahib sent Shahidi Faujan to battle with the Mughals, and they protected Baba Banda Singh Bahadur. In the same way, our Shaheeds, whether they're Ratan or whether they're Vartaman, the current Shaheeds, we think about them and they will protect us. And they will be around us and they will get us through this. They will guide us. WhyGuru Ji Ka Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you so much. And then for the next two questions, we have a bit of a more quick fire. So if one of the panel members could take a lead on the question, And then if anyone has anything small to add on, please feel free to. So the next question is about reflecting on women's involvement in the Sangharsh. Oftentimes we focus on the Singhs, especially in our history, but the Sangharsh was filled with absolutely incredible women. So are there any specific examples you can think of female-led resistance, rebuilding, or spiritual leadership that continues to inspire you to this day? If any one of the panel members want to just take a lead on that.
So, Sikh Bibiyan in the Sangharsh, firstly and foremostly, my limited knowledge of the Sangharsh is still very limited. But in any Sangharsh, the backbone of that Sangharsh and the foundation of that Sangharsh starts from the mothers, starts from the home. And any Sikh, any Guru Sikh that went out there and fought, they only did so at the support of the home, of the Singhaniya, that raised the children without a father, that gave back to the Panth via sambhaling and giving and nurturing. In the actual Sangharsh itself, there's been countless Shahidiyan. In Darbar Sahib itself, many Bibiyan gave Shahidi. Bibi Ravinder Kaur, when gas was being set, thrown into Bakar Mashi using onions and giving onions out to the Gursikhs so it could help prevent the tear gas going into the eyes. There's countless examples of these Singhaniya. Bibi Bimil Khalsa later on continued the fight. Shahid Bhai Jaswant Singh Khalra's Singhani continued to fight and get justice later on. And you can understand many of the Bibiyan, Bibi Amarjit Singh, Bhai Amarjit Singh, Khaim Karan's Singhani. You can hear their stories of the struggles that they went through. Shahid Bhai Amarjit Singh Teheru, when Teheru Khan happened, she was in the house and she fought. So the stories, there's loads, but to understand that the hissa that they gave wasn't just about them in the battlefield with a gun and fighting at the front, but the biggest for me was the support that they gave, whether it was giving a prashadda to the Singhs that came, just like the Spicer was given a story of, Bitha Para Pulge. It's that effort that they put in. They say Sikhi ki to shuru hundi hai. Sikhi 20 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਬੱਚੇ ਹੋਣ ਤੋਂ, ਮਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਬੱਚਾ ਪੇਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਵੇ ਮਾਂ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਸੁਖਮਨੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਾ ਪਾਠ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿੰਨਾ ਨਾਮ ਜਪਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿੰਨਾ ਸੇਵਾ, how much seva she's doing. That's where the Sikhi comes from. So the mama, Maharaj, the Shabd in Gurbani, I don't know if I want to get it correct, Janini, Jane? So there's a saying that if a mother was to give birth to a child, that she either gives birth to a surma or to a bhagat. And that's where the Sikhi starts. It starts from there. And the sacrifices that the mothers have given to that. The mothers that sat on the manjia looking at the door, waiting, is that knock? Is that my son coming on? Is that my husband coming on? The sacrifices that they gave, they are unmatched. And you can see around at the back of the room, walk around and have a look, and you'll see our Mawa and our Bibiyan there and the sacrifices that they gave.
So just adding on one specific example of a Bibi during the time of 1984, and you can see on the banner at the back with Bhai Singh is Bibi Upkar Kaur, who led a very fierce role in that time as well. So fighting in a Sangharsh doesn't just mean picking up an AK-47 and shooting. It starts from way before that, like Baji said. When Bibi Upkar Kaur Ji was in university, she became the leader of all girls wing of Sikh Student Federation. And so at that time, all the Bibiyan, a lot of the women started following the Western ideologies and the Western fashion. And what Benji saw during that time, she felt quite disheartened that people are forgetting the values that we've been taught by the generation that came before them as well. And what she did was, she promoted these Bibiyan to then wear Punjabi suits instead to university. And a big thing, I think, a lot of youngsters, including myself, we tend to forget is we actually develop what we're seeing and what we're hearing and what we're wearing as well. So if you wear those kapade, if you wear that kind of fashion that is modest, and you hear Gurbani all the time, or you hear Kirtan, or you hear Katha, that's what you'll start to reap inside of you as well. So Bibiji promoted these Bibiyan in their university to start following back towards the Punjabi and Sikh traditions that were laid. And what happened was it created a revolutionary moment in that university and gathered so much attention that Bhai Amrik Singh Ji appointed her as the leader of All Girls Federation, where during 1984, she then gave Shahidi. And there's loads of resources online where you can actually read how Bibiji gave that Shahidi. And every time you read it, you'll get goosebumps. Every single time. Because those are the Bibiyan, those are the Benjis that came and are continuously still aspiring us today. And it's because of them shaheeds that we are still able to tie our dastar and we're still able to wear garin, because that's what the government at that time wanted. They didn't want that. The individuals like Bibi Upkar Kaur Ji, like Bhai Amrik Singh Ji, that's what they gave us.
Absolutely incredible.
I want to dedicate my few minutes to the unsung heroes, the mothers of these shaheeds. A close friend of mine, he shared this experience with me. He said the CRPF, the Central Reserve Police, surrounded my house. It was about almost midnight when they came jumping, across the walls into the compound, and they asked for me. And I was like there, my dad was there, my brother, my sisters were there, my mom, and they asked me a few questions, and they said, "We didn't have to take you along." And he said, I had no choice, so I had to go along. And as I got ready to leave, I'm walking through that alley next to my house with these police folks, and it was very clear what was coming that evening, that night. And it was quite possible that I would never ever come back home either. And as I'm walking through that alley, my mom, she says, ran behind me, and she patted me on the shoulder like that, and I turned around, and she said, "Ghabrana nahi putra, Guru Gobind Singh Sahib tere naal hai." And he said, when my mom said this to me, it kind of turned something on within me. And when they put me in this Mirador blue van, I was sitting in the back seat. There were 2 or 3 CRPF Jawans sitting behind me. This inspector and the sub-inspector was sitting in front of me. The little guy, the lower rank officer, talks to the higher rank guy, and he says, "This was kind of unusual. Today's arrest wasn't the usual arrest." He says, "What do you mean?" He said, "When we go raid these homes, people start screaming and crying, and they fall at our feet and whatnot, and let go of our child, don't do this to him." And these guys did nothing. We went in, they said, "We're going to take him," and they said, "Go ahead, take him." And the officer said, and he said, "I was doing copies of the art." And this officer guy says, "There's a difference. There are the real ones, and then there are the make-believe ones. These are the real ones. They know what's coming. They are prepared for it. And who prepares them for it? It's the mothers. It's the mothers." That was a common thread amongst most of the shaheeds, where their moms stood behind them like a rock. Thank you.
Absolutely incredible words. And for the next, we have a quick question about the role of Singhs in the Panth. So in 1984 in the Sangharsh, we lost a lot of young Singhs. So what is then the role and the responsibility of young Sikh men today to help raise and be a generation that is rooted in that Guru philosophy and rooted in understanding and appreciating the salvation that sacrifice.
All that Guru Singh had to share with you is that we need to do. It's as simple as that. There are no two things about it. We need to start walking the talk. I was at a meeting of several SSAs down in Los Angeles, and we were talking about things, what the Singhs need to do today. And I shared this with them, and I shared this last week in South Hall, and I'm going to do it again. Our birth rate is 1.6. You're soon going to be extinct. Our pictures will be in museums. And when I reach out to our young people and try to ask them to rethink their strategy in life, and when I suggest to them that we need more moms, and their question to me is, sure we can, and sure we want to, but where are the guys? Where are the young men? Our young Singhs are so immature, in their words, so immature. They don't realize what lies ahead for our Panth. They're focusing so much on Bana, but there is so little emphasis on content. We need to realize, as young men, that we are soon going to be extinct unless we mature and recognize our goals if they coincide with the Panth's goals. Life is not sweet for those, who have dealt with genocide and face sure extinction. Let's wake up.
There's just one point I want to make. There's a point that was raised earlier about mothers. 700 years the Jews were Ghulam. 700 years. And you know what Jewish mothers would say to their children before they went to sleep? I'd say in Punjabi. They used to say, Putter Sonja, Jerusalem ch milne ha, supne ch. How many mothers today say to their children, Putter Sonja, apne Khalsa Raj ch milne ha, ja Khalistan ch milne ha. The vision is set by the mothers. The vision, the hope, the trajectory is set by the mothers. Now the question is, what do we do now going forward? And I sat here last year and I said this exact same thing that I'm going to say now. Before you go to sleep on a night, ask yourself one question. Am I going to work for 8 hours and earn money for myself? I might have given time off to my family. I might have done for my house. I might have watched some TV. But ask yourself before you sleep, what did I do for the Panth today? And as soon as you start asking yourself that question, okay, what did I do for the Panth today? You will start doing something for the Panth. It's every single one of our duties. The Panth isn't out there, the Panth is you. Understand your responsibility. Understand the seva. No one's going to come ask you to do seva. No one's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, seva Guru. You have to find that seva. Find what you want to do. Look at the exhibition at the back. Create your own. Do Parchar. Understand, become a researcher. Whatever it is that you find that you need to do, but do. Like Bhai Sahib, Dr. Sahib said, you are on the verge of extinction. And to fight that extinction, you need to remember what happened to you. If you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. So history is such an important part of it. Understand your duty, wherever the duty is, however the duty is. If you can't pick up the, if you can't pick up the sword, pick up the pen. If you can't pick up the pen or the sword, pick up the mala. Do bhakti for the pant. Pray for the pant. Say, I'm going to do 5 chopwe sahibs a day today for the chardi kala of the pant. And you imagine if every single person in this room started doing a chopwe sahib for the pant a day, just for the pant. Imagine that nuclear reactor it will create. Imagine praying for the pant and the chardi kala of the pant. And you tell me, when Maharaj says, pant vasai main ujda, and that pant itself starts turning into itself and expanding that way, how will we fail? There is no failure then. So whatever it is, however it is you can do to help, please do. Understand your duty, it is your duty. We have an atmic duty, a spiritual journey which is personal to ourselves that no one needs to know about, but it's our journey to finding that creator, but we have a Pantic duty. So understand yourself, what am I doing which is benefiting the Panth? How can I use my profession to benefit the Panth? If I'm studying law, how can I use law? If I'm studying engineering, how can I think about engineering something for the Panth? If I'm a teacher, understand how can I use my teaching skills to teach the next generation? If I'm in a leadership role, how can I start to develop the next leaders of the Panth? Use whatever skill sets you're doing. And the Panth doesn't have any qualms, they don't have any reduction in terms of skill sets. In this room alone, I guarantee there's someone studying medicine, someone studying engineering, an accountant in here, someone studying law. The Panth has so many brainy, intelligent, young minds. Just find where you need to use your skill sets and how it can benefit the Panth.
And then a question came through from the Sangha, but Baisa's already done quite a good job answering it before even knowing the question, so that's quite incredible. But if there's anything more for anyone to add, moving forward, how can today's youth carry that torch of Sangharsh forward? But now we're global citizens, dealing with global problems, so many issues, we're getting our attention pulled in so many different directions. How can we, in terms of remembrance, resistance, and reform, how can we define our own narrative today?
Lecture on itself. Yeah, I was commenting on this question. I said this is a lecture in itself. Number one, as I was mentioning earlier, I want to keep it short. How closely do we associate with the Panth? Do we identify with the Panth? That's the first thing. Am I a weekend warrior or am I a consistent in my thoughts? What do I dream of? What are my dreams comprised of? I think the only way this can happen is if we start educating ourselves. When we like that, it's an easy answer नहीं हैगा इस day and age दे विच ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੰਨੀਆਂ ਹੋਰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ distractions ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਏਜ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਮੈਡੀਕਲ ਕਾਲਜ ਗਿਆ ਉਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਵਾਲਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਸਟਰਕਚਰ ਕੋਲੈਪਸ ਹੋਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਿਊਕਲੀਅਰ ਫੈਮਿਲੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਆਨਸੈਟ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਇਆ 1980s ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਦੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜੁਆਇੰਟ ਫੈਮਿਲੀਜ਼ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ people used to stay together, people used to learn from their chache, their mame, their pua, their masiyan. They were all there to guide them. ਹੁਣ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ collapse ਕਰ ਗਿਆ ਹੁਣ economy ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ survive ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ two incomes ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਇੱਕ family ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. So I don't have an easy solution. The only thing I think we can do is if we are really committed, ਉਦੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਪੰਥ ਦੀ ਹਾਲਤ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਚੰਗੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦਾ।
I think the answer to this question, like Paisab said, is not very easy. But I can say one thing. And once we understand that point, it gives you the understanding and courage and energy to understand why those people that fought were victorious. When we make this my fight, that I'm fighting, we lose. Because there's an I attached to that. There's a me attached to that. When we understand that the fight is not mine, it's his, and that's who I'm fighting for, it changes. If I said to every single one of you right now, stand up, we need to go fight someone, what's the first question you'd ask me? Who are we fighting? Why are we fighting them? And when you understand what Guru Sahib is, who Guru Sahib is, what the Khalsa is, what the Panth is, you don't need to ask the question on why we're fighting. And when you realize that Dasmesh Pita Sarban Sadani Kalgitar Putra Didani is standing right next to you, then what do you have to fear? Like Pai Sahib said, that mother, she only thapra ditta ke putra doli na. That's all we need sometimes. And when we understand that the Smesh Pita is with us, and you think, oh, they've got hundreds and thousands or millions in their army. They've got tanks. They've got topa. They've got spies probably sitting amongst us now. How are you going to fight them? And then you remember, Satguru Mera Tan Nitan. He is the power to the powerless. And when you understand that the fateh is not yours, when I'm fighting for me and it's my fight, then I'm thinking it's my victory. But when the fateh is his, then there's no losing. Kyunki is WhyGuru Ji da Khalsa, WhyGuru Ji ki fateh.
And for our final question, I think we all agree, and as Baisab said quite eloquently, that at the end of the day it's about unity, it's about ekta. This Panth is incredible, and if it comes together can do absolutely mind-blowing things. So, what does a united Sikh future look like for you? Let's talk ideals. Let's talk what this beautiful Panth can do in the future. What does a united Sikh future look like to you that honours the Shaheeds and is ongoing with that seva and that lifestyle? What are those things you'd like to see in the future?
Contribution from the youth. The youth is important because we are the upcoming generation that are going to be able to sit on panels like these and talk in the next 50, 60 years as well. So I think an important question to ask as well is, what's something that can't be taken away from you? And that's knowledge. Knowledge is your key to any sovereignty. You can lose your strength over time, you might get older, you might not be as strong as you were in the youth, but your knowledge will still remain constant, it will still remain the same. And there's a lot of youth sitting here today as well. What can you do? You can read. There's so many resources out there, there's social media, something that wasn't accessible 60 years ago, 70 years ago, as much as it is accessible right now. Read, there's so much literature, even in this room, if you go to the back. There's no excuse to, not have any sort of motivation or any excuse to not arm yourself with that knowledge that we need. That's how we keep the Sangharsh going for the next 100 years, for the next 200 years. If we forget now, our generations are never going to remember. It's going to die with us. And someone that is deeply you can say an example for this is Bibi Bimal Kaur, who was the wife of by Bayan Singh, one of the assassinators of Indira Gandhi. Now she came from a Hindu parivar, so she didn't grow up in a Gursikh parivar like most of us in this room did. She lost her husband, she had to raise 2 kids. She had so much government pressure on her. But even then, she didn't care that, oh, the government's after me because my husband did such, an amazing, well, not to the government, but to us, such an amazing act, killing the perpetrator. And Bibi Bimal Kaur, she used her knowledge, her power. She ran in the Lok Sabha elections. From Ropar she won. She used her power, she used her political power, became an MP, and she created that awareness. She led the Sangharsh to then make the generations remember and act on what had happened. On June 4th, 1986, she brought together 4,000 people. That's a lot of people to lead. She brought 4,000 people into the complex of Sri Harmandir Sahib, gave a revolutionary speech which got her arrested, which got her detained by the Indian government, and only Guru Sahib knows what had happened during that time. But even after she got released, she never stopped because that dard was still in her, and that dard lies within us today as well. That's why you're sitting here. And why, when we hear about our shaheeds, why do you think that we sit there and we think, we go home and we're like, how could the government do such things? How could the shaheed Singhs endure so much? Why is that dard in us? It's because their blood that they spilled still runs in our bodies today. That's why we feel the dard. And if we're going to sit here and we're going to go home and we're going to forget, that's just unfortunate for us. That's just our bad luck that we couldn't remember. But those Shaheed Singhs, those Shaheed Singhaniya that we speak about, they're not in the past, they're here with us today. They're still among us. If you want to make a contribution to the Panth, whether you're a student and you're trying to do a dissertation on the Punjab struggles, or whether you're trying to use your skill set as an artist to make pictures, you're not doing that. It's the Shaheed Singhs that are right next to you that are doing that through you. So use your skill sets that you can use to inspire our future generations as well.
So the question, I guess, is about unity in the Panth. I'm going to talk about just unity in an organization on a very smaller scale. Things which bind us together, there are 2 things. Number 1, our priorities. What's more important for me? Is it same thing that's important to the person on my right, on my left? So we come together. We have the same priorities. Second thing that brings us together, are our goals the same? Sada nishana ek hai. If sada nishana ek hai, if sadiyan priorities same order which ne. There may be a lot of things which we may not agree upon. But with that common background, we can come together and move on. I'll give you one example. In April 1984, Sant Jarnail Singh Ji's Parchar is as I speak. The Akalis don't like it, Harchand Singh Longowar, Prakash Singh Badal don't like it, and they find a way to provoke Sant Jarnail Singh Ji so that he would stop doing what he is doing and maybe change the course of history. What do? They assassinate by Surinder Singh Sodhi. And when these guys, these journalists, come over to provoke again further, to put salt on somebody's wounds, and they ask Santji, what would you do next? Now that they have killed Surinder Singh Sodhi, what would you do next? And they were expecting that Santji was going to say, I'm going to go and take out Longowal or take out Badal or take out X, Y or Z. You know what he said? He said, मैं 4 और मरवाऊंगा, मैं पेशेंस रखूंगा, क्योंकि मेरा निशाना दिल्ली है, मेरा गोल 5 दी फतेह है। सुरेंद्र सिंह सोढ़ी ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਕਰਤਾ, ਮੇਰੀ ਸੱਜੀ ਬਾਹ ਹੈ। But my goal is to tackle Delhi. My goal is to get these shackles of slavery off the necks of the Sikhs, of the Panth. मैं 4 और मरवाऊंगा. I don't think the journalists were expecting this response. So we need to tread very carefully from the place where we stand together. I know it's very concerning. We are all very worried about the splinter groups that exist within us. But once we have the same order of priorities, when we have the same goals, we can very easily come together. And I think it's much easier for you guys to come together than people of my age, because I carry a lot of other baggage as well. And there are a lot of skeletons perhaps in my cupboard, so to speak. That's it.
I think tolerance is very important. At one point, when we, as the Sikh community or any other community, were aliens in the UK, there was a big issue around tolerance. And now the situation is that we actually haven't got tolerance amongst each other. And there is so much squabbling and differences, and it's not getting any closer. We're moving further and further apart. But the cause behind that, in my own opinion, is that we forgot our goal. What is the nishana of the goal? What is our goal at the moment? Sadly, there's no nishana currently which has been set by Sri Akal Takht Sahib. But in my eyes, the nishana should be to establish our own homeland, something which brings us together. These other issues we can sort out afterwards. They will always exist. They exist in the communities that have their own homelands. There's factions, there's various groups, and that's one point. The other point is, realistically, like there's a lot of Sangat who are locally from Smethwick or from Birmingham. How much do we actually get involved in the Gurdwara or in Seva, whether it's physically doing Seva in the Gurdwara Sahib? There might be a handful. Realistically, how much of us actually go into the Langar or into any other part of the Guru Gal and do Seva? I know that 90% of the seva which is carried out at the Gurdwara when it comes to youth, in fact 99% is carried out by the students which have recently come from Punjab or India. Because realistically, sadly, the youth of the UK either aren't interested or they've broken away. But whose responsibility is it to obviously, number one, to get you guys back in? And whose responsibility is it? It's everyone's responsibility. It's your responsibility, it's the Prabandhak's responsibility. But there's so much happening in the Gurdwara Sahib. There's talks that take place every Thursday by Basics of Sikhi. In another couple of weeks' time, from the 20th to the 22nd, there's a Shahidi Samagam which is happening at the Gurdwara Sahib, in which Paji Gurpreet Singh, there'll be a tent set up outside on the lines of the Great War site, in which there'll be the exhibition for the 1984 Shaheeds, for the whole Sangharsh. The opportunity is there. Just like for a child, you provide them the opportunity. But the thing is, it's our responsibility to come forward as well. It's our responsibility, if the doors are open, to go through that door and embrace what's there. When you go downstairs, you see with your own eyes, the people that are doing the physical seva, majority of them are the students from Punjab, who have recently come over in the last couple of years. But can't we dedicate some time to go and partake in Langar Seva, or go and partake in Seva in the Darbar Sahib, or go and distribute Qur'an Prashad? Or is that Seva not to our liking? Why can't we print Parchar off? Why can't we print stuff off and distribute Parchar on occasions like 1984, on Shahidi Dihade, or on any other Dihada, around the Gurdwara Sahib, around our local areas, or speak to other Sikhs who are still novice and they've not come onto this path. From our side, I think we're trying to bring everyone together, because whether you've taken Amrit or whether you haven't taken Amrit, you're our brothers and sisters, and those that haven't taken Amrit one day are going to take Amrit and come into the fold of the Guru. So the Guru Ka's door, our doors are open. So those next steps are yours. WhyGuru Ji Ka Khalsa. WhyGuru Ji.
So we have one final question for the panel, and then after that we have a question for the Sabbath. So the final question for the panel is this: the Indian state has put so much time and effort and resources into their anti-Sikh, pro-state propaganda, to the point that Sikh living in India will say that we're Indian first and Sikh second. This is a common phrase we're seeing all over social media. How do we begin to undo this and attempt to instill Bantik Soj in people who have been taught to value the nation state over the plant? What can we say to people to help them see beyond this propaganda?
Look guys, India is a mythical state. It's a mythical country, yeah? It's 29 or so different states that have come together that has different languages, different cultures. You go into Bihar, you don't know you're in India. It's a totally different language. You go into Tamil Nadu, they can't understand people from Bihar. You go into Maharashtra, they can't understand people from the other states. It's a union of states. And what Punjab was before 1947, it was Azad. Now you tell me, would you rather live under the rule of another, or would you rather live sovereign? If you believe in India being your country and it being your state, then you want to live in Galami. Because that's what we're living. Someone in this room tell me in the last 40 years how we have been, well not in the last 40 years, since 1947, in the last 70 or odd so years, how we have benefited as Punjab by being with India. You had 5 rivers, 17.17 million acre feet of river water was flowing through your rivers. 75% of that was diverted and given to other states. Your language, which was Punjabi, is now a tertiary language. English and Hindi are priority over it. Your dharm, which was flourishing, has now been riddled with many, many inaccuracies, which has been Galam to Delhi, which Akal Takht is, which is riddled throughout Punjab with Biadmiya and Dubda, and your history is being changed. That's just religiously. Your Gurdwara institutions are Galam. Your education during Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time was one of the highest. G.W. Letner, go read his work and what he said about Maharaja Ranjit Singh's Raj and the education there. Today, near enough zero. Your Shefut Gabru Punjab, the Sur Maidans that used to go and fight every single war, the Karak of Punjab used to be something. Today is riddled with cancer and Nesheris. Tell me, how have we benefited since 1947 and being called that we're a part of India? How? Tell me one reason and one way that we've benefited. How can anybody say that they're proud? The split of that It wasn't a partition of India, it was a partition of Punjab. The land of 5 rivers was partitioned. 120 Gurukars were given to West Punjab. What you are and what you should be proud in saying you are is Punjabi and a Sikh foremost. And there's more Punjab in the west side than there is in the east side. You are just as much Pakistani as you are Indian. But the deep state narrative has got you turning your noses up. When you hear Pakistani, oh no, I don't want anything to do with them. Well, that was the Dharti of Guru Nanak Maharaj was Paragat. You need to change that mindset of the deep state that has nurtured you, has doctored you, has programmed you to think India is bad, and we naturally ally to Indians and the Hindus. To understand, Guru Gobind Singh Ji fought how many battles were against the Mughals, but how many, even more, were against the Hindu Raja. Not against any Dharam. All I'm saying is the facts are there. Those that some people will assimilate in our minds to start thinking, oh well, you know what, we do arti, they do arti, they wear tilaks, we'll start wearing tilaks, they do this, we've started to change our cultures to think a certain way and do certain things, which were never a part of Khalsa Paramparas. And what has that caused? An assimilation. It's caused an assimilation deep down in the back of our heads. We are being assimilated. If you can't beat them, make them like you. Make them feel like, oh no, Sita Tikia. You have good Sikhs walking around today saying, nahi, main ta azad hain, ithe main khada azad hai. You might be azad, but go ask those mothers at the back of them boards that were raped in the streets of Delhi if they were azad. Look at Jatana. His entire family was killed for us. But you saying you're azad? No, we are Ghulam. And until a patient goes to the doctor and the doctor tells him, no, you need this medicine, he will continue being ill. Until you realize that you're Ghulam, only then you can start fighting towards azadi. That is the first step. Those people that have that question in their mind, oh, I'm pro-India, no, I'll support India during cricket, no, I'll do this. The knee was written when Darbar Sahib, the knee was laid when Darbar Sahib was attacked. Asi morcha gadya hoya te ja raj karenge, ja lad marenge. That is our nishana.
This is a very important question. I hope that you don't have any other questions, right?
That's the last
one. Nation states operate in a very specific way. And this could be India, this could be Britain, this could be the United States, Canada, name one, and it's the same theory. They are all open prisons. Their education system has one goal. If you talk about the Union of India, they now want us to become Indians, not the Punjabis or the Biharis or the Assamese or the Bengalis that we used to be. So that's the goal of the nation state. In other words, you can call that the process of domestication. So they're going to do what they have to do. They're entitled to do it because they have that nation state. For us, the challenge is whether we want to be the sher of the jungle, the babbar sher, or we want to be the sher of the circus. So he does the same thing, the same sher, but then he has to kind of do these antics in a circus to entertain people. But the babbar sher, the one in the jungle, is independent. So we got to remember that we are all those babbar sher created by Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji, and we don't want to live or experience the hegemony of the nation state, whether it, a lot of people in America say we are Sikh Americans, we are American Sikhs. They think and then a British Sikhs. There's no such term as British Sikh or American Sikh or Sikh American or Canadian Sikhs. The only term is Sikh, and the Sikh of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. That's it. And we have to consume this. and get it into a way of thinking. If, for two people, first was Sardar Kapoor Singh. He knew this. He knew that the process of assimilation, like he said, has started. And we need to do something. And if it was not for 1984, whatever the reasons which brought us to that junction, I think it was a pivotal moment. That if Sant Jarnail Singh Ji hadn't decided to do what he did, most of us in here would be standing in front of the Tiranga on 15th August at the High Commission and saying Jan Gadman. So we need to, again, as I said earlier, we need to recognize our priorities and our goals. And once we do, and I think an important part in this, that's my last statement, it comes to you, the youth, who are in school, in the universities, you are writing papers, some of you might be trying to become journalists, you're going to bring out some information out there. The goal is to elevate the collective consciousness of the Panth as to who we are. Only then, I think, we can, by beating the elite of that nation state, creating our own elite, the Vidvans, that we bring out that information out to the public consumption, can we beat this narrative that we are Indians. Only one thing, last thing I'll say to the Sangat is, ਮੇਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੰਨਣੀ ਨਹੀਂ। ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੋ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਗੁਆਂਢੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਆਪਣੇ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇਦਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਆਪਣੇ ਦੋਸਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੋ? ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ, ਇੰਡੀਆ 'ਚ ਇਹ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਜੀ। ਗੱਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ। ਹਾਂ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਕਈ ਜਣੇ ਹਰਿਆਣੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੋਣਗੇ, ਕਈਆਂ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਮੀਨ ਉੱਤਰ ਪ੍ਰਦੇਸ਼ 'ਚ ਹੋਊਗੀ, ਪਰ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਛੱਡੋ, ਆਪਣੀ ਸਾਈਕੀ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਰਡ ਨੂੰ ਕੱਢੋ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੋ ਤੇ ਕਹੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਚੱਲੇ ਹਾਂ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਨੇ ਆਕੂਪਾਈ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ। ਉੱਥੇ ਤਿਰੰਗਾ ਧੱਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਲਵਾਇਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ, ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਲੋਕੀ ਸ਼ੌਕ ਨਾਲ ਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਮਝੀਏ, ਬੜੀ ਛੋਟੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਇੰਪਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ। Don't just shun the word India. Bring Punjab into our collective consciousness. Identify with Punjab more than you identify with India. Let them do what they have to do. मैं कई बार बहुत ज़्यादा यहाँ लगता है गुस्से हो गया, मैं गुस्से में आया था, उन्होंने माफ़ कर दिया। थोड़ा बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सारिਆਂ ਦਾ। वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह।
वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। And to finish off, we want to say thank you. We want to say thank you first and foremost to every one of these incredible speakers. We have people representing our youth. We have people representing the future of Gurdwara. We have people representing the experience of our Panth. People representing the research and the academics of our incredible, incredible Panth. We just want to say thank you deeply to each and every one of you for the incredible seva that you've done today, the incredible seva you've been doing, and the incredible seva you carry on doing. We also want to thank every single organization that has come. All of these stalls and expos will still be here for the next half an hour or so, and all of these incredible speakers still will be. And if you get an opportunity, please make the most of them, talk to them, get their knowledge, because they're going to be tired, so they're going to be going home soon, so please jump in. Half an hour, sorry, we've just been told. And then also, we want to thank the Sangat, because you've been here, you've shown your faces, you've given us your attention, and it's because you all come here that we can do events like this. It's because you're here that we get to talk about these issues. It's because you're here that Sikhi is still here. So it's a massive thank you to each of you. And then with that thank you, we have a question. And the question is, what are you going to do? The question is, what are you going to do once you've had this information today? Are you going to go home and just think, okay, that's done? Or are you going to do something about it? Are you going to talk to one of these people? Are you going to talk to each other? Are you going to scan one of the things on the board? Join a Sikhi camp, come to a program, get involved any way you can. We also want to shout out a few events that we have. So we have the incredible Thursday talks next week. We have a continuation of some of the stories that have been going on today and going forward, more history than that. We also have different community groups which you can scan and see on the board. There's also an event with Barker that's happening in Slough, and you can ask some of the things in the back for some more information about that. And also, at the end, we want to ask you this: what are you going to do? So please, all of you, take that forward, get involved in any way you can. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਮੈਂ ਇੱਕ ਗੱਲ ਕਹਿਣੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ, ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਇੱਥੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਆ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਥੱਕੇ ਹੋਏ ਹੋ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਣੇ, ਪਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਣੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਮੋਟੀਵੇਟਡ ਹੋ। ਤੇ his question was, what are you going to do today? You know, what are you going to do about it? What I would suggest you do is to write a summary of what you heard today and put it in a place where you can go through it on a regular basis. Take pictures. You know, just recreate what you heard. Those phrases, those little small, snippets you heard. Make a little summary of it. It will never die. It will live with you forever.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਬੋਲੇ ਸੋ ਨਿਹਾਲ
ਸੋ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਇੱਕ ਮਿੰਟ ਸੰਗਤ ਨੂੰ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਜੇ ਰਹੋ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਤਿਕਾਰਯੋਗ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਗੁਰਤੇਜ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕੈਲੀਫੋਰਨੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਆ, ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇਹ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਨਮਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ I don't think you guys actually are very aware, but ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਚੈਨਲਸ ਨੇ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਸਰਚ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ। ਜਦ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਦਰਪੇਸ਼ ਮਸਲਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਆਰ ਰੈਫਰੈਂਸ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਫॉर ਮਾਈਸੈਲਫ ਐਜ਼ ਵੈਲ ਐਂਡ ਮੈਨੀ ਅਦਰਸ। ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰੂੰਗਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਭਾਈ ਭਗਵਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਬੋਲੇ ਸੋ ਨਿਹਾਲ।